Hey, y'all, thank you for joining us for our Beef Brunch news update for the first one for 2024. So this is going out on Tuesday, January 9th. We're excited to be back with y'all. We're going to hopefully kick this off well. As y'all know, we record these on a Monday afternoon. It is pouring down rain, thankfully. So we're hoping everybody's internet and everybody's connections stay on. Trips has been in and out all day in the Union Parish office. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Trip, and let you go first. So hopefully you'll be able to finish everything without losing internet.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year, and thank y'all for having me. And like Ashley said, we've been having some technological difficulties, so I'll talk kind of fast. So, a lot of what we have going on in the Northeast region is very reflective of what we got going on in the Northwest region. Topsoil moisture there's a little bit there. We've had a few small rains from Christmas to now. It is raining cats and dogs outside right now. So, we're proud of every drop that falls. But Lee had mentioned earlier that we hadn't run water yet. We really still haven't run water yet. Tanks are low, farm ponds are bad low. Subsoil moisture is still borderline non-existent. One of our co-workers, her husband's got a place in Franklin Parish, and Franklin Parish is in the heart of the Delta. It's flat as a pancake. This time of year should be waterlogged, and he was doing a little bit of light disking between Christmas and now. So you shouldn't be able to drop a disc in Franklin Parish in January. But not only was he disking, turning up some ground, but he was stirring up some dust, which had his wife annoyed at him because he got her dusty. But you shouldn't be doing that in January in Franklin Parish. But hopefully this rain will go a long ways towards getting us caught up. A lot of what I said last time still holds true, that we got a few folks grazing, which everybody's going to be getting cows off of grass today. That way it don't get stumped into the mud. But a lot of folks are grazing, especially folks that were on planted seed beds or prepared seed beds. Grass that has been just overseeded, still not looking too hot, guys. It's going to be a tough year for that. And I bet that's pretty consistent all across the I-20 corridor, at least. Talked to a few producers. Not a lot going on other than putting out hay up here. That's really it. There's a lot of work getting done on places, projects that have been put off, but the weather's been pretty conducive for a lot of stuff. With it being as dry as it has been, there's been some fence got built, some shop projects have gotten done. Some kids have been polishing on some 4-H show animals, getting ready for their parish shows and their district shows, which we just had our Union Parish show this past weekend and getting geared up for the Northeast District show. So we're pretty excited about that. But that's just kind of been the story up this way. Guys, I want to encourage y'all in this time where we aren't blowing and going and we don't have a lot going on. Take advantage of this time. Use this time for year-round planning. A lot of guys think whenever something gets up on them, they're like, man, I wish I'd have made plans to do this. I wish I'd have done that. Now's the time to get your breeding season scheduled. Now's whenever you want to do some long-range planning on improvements to facilities and farm infrastructure. Now is whenever you start coming up with drought mitigation strategies, because the guys that had a plan in place this past year, it was a lot less stressful on them because they knew what they were going to do at what point. So please take advantage of this time while we're not just blowing and going. Guys, we had a pretty good run with internet, so I'm pushing my luck, I feel like. So I'm going to go on and pass the baton to whoever's going next.
Thank you, sir. And I'll add to that, we were talking about preparing for calving season earlier today at the Dean Lee Research Station. So your facilities, your equipment, supplies, all of that for calving for those of you that are going to start having calves hit the ground here in the next month or so. And taxes, all those paperwork, the nice rainy days, getting all that together for tax season. Brittany, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you for our central region.
Okay. Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it. So as you mentioned, calving season, Vince and I, when we actually spoke earlier today, we talked a little bit about just how important it is that you are prepared for calving season, and making sure that you have all of the tools that you need and supplies that you need, having those things clean, disinfected, and ready to go, just in case you do have something come up where you have to pull a calf or have some kind of emergency. So one thing, of course, remember with that, some stuff you want to have on hand. Sanitizing is very important. We don't want to spread any diseases or anything that we don't need to. So make sure you have a disinfectant as well as gloves on hand at all times, and then make sure that you are disinfecting any equipment that you use after each use. You also want to make sure you have lubricant on hand if you do have to pull a calf. Make sure you have your OB chains ready to go in good condition and clean and all that. A thermometer also be helpful. You know, we should have a pretty cold winter, it looks like, coming up in the next few weeks. We'll kind of see what happens, but just in case you do have, you know, we've had those 20-something degree nights and different things. We just kind of don't know what's going to happen there. Also, you want to have your tagging supplies, right? Those things you need for identification. So your tags, your tagging gun. Always keep that good record keeping in practice, right? We want to have those records be as accurate as possible. And then esophageal tubes, if you need some, either for colostrum or just if you have cattle that are sick that you need to get electrolytes into, a couple of those designated for each on hand would be good to keep on hand as well. And then the vaccine protocol that your veterinarian gives you, make sure you have the things that you need for that on hand to get your, not only your calves, but also the rest of your herd vaccinated. And again, just make sure you get with your local veterinarian to follow those protocols. And then make sure you have, you know, your needles and everything that you need on hand as well. So something that we have done in the fall and that we do have coming up, which Ashley, I'm sure we'll talk about our upcoming events, bull testing, right? So you want to make sure, as we are getting ready in the next few months to go into that breeding season, you want to make sure that your bulls are tested and in good condition and ready to go. If you have some aged bulls, make sure you want to get them tested for trichinosis as well. And we just want to make sure that we're given our calf crop, you know, percentage, the best, you know, possibility we can for it to be the highest that it can. I did look just a little bit to see kind of about, you know, calf crop percentages and whatnot. And I mean, if the conditions and everything were perfect, you know, like obviously that's not going to happen. But even a 90% calf crop can be something that's really hard to achieve, right? We got to be a little bit realistic. And just some data that from the USDA NAS showed that over the last 37 years that the calf crop percentage has not increased overall. So we just want to make sure that everybody's doing, you know, your producers, y'all are doing everything that you can just to be prepared for those things that may happen that are unexpected. From a nutrition standpoint, we still have producers contacting us about going out and testing their hay. And you just want to make sure that you're just keeping an eye on your cattle herd and making sure that they're in the proper, you know, body condition scores that they need to be. And that those months after calving, you know, the nutritional requirements of your cattle are going to increase within those 90 days after calving and that early lactation. So you want to make sure that you are adjusting for that as well. And just keep an eye on those body condition scores. And if you see, you know, your cattle starting to decline, getting a little bit thinner, you're probably going to need to make an adjustment on your nutrition strategy there. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Vince now, unless you have anything you want to add to any of that, Ashley, and he can talk a little bit more about what the conditions we've been seeing in our area and whatnot.
No, I mean, I'm just going to reiterate a few things that you said. So on the calving season, preparing for that and tying in body condition scores, you're going through and doing your records on your calves. It's great to have a column there for the body condition score of that cow when she calves. So as you're recording birth date, birth weight, tag number, sex, all of that, go ahead and record the body condition score of that cow. Record her temperament, her disposition there too. Just some things to tie all of that in together. Vince, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys, and it's a pleasure to be here on a new year. And my golly, it's you know, we've changed weather patterns like in the last 2 weeks, because as we moved into 2024, we go off of Lafayette's radio state or TV stations as far as rainfall and percentages, and we were probably between 25 and 30 inches behind our annual rainfall at the close of the calendar year, which is almost half of our annual rainfall. So it was definitely dry. As sentiments to what Tripp said earlier, we had tractors working spring ground, for planting rice and other crops that are widely grown here. The sugarcane harvest went off without virtually no down days because of weather. Here, just the last few days, we've had, I think, 2 inches of rain on Friday evening, and an inch prior to that a week earlier, and then we're looking at another 2-inch rain today, and then again on Friday, with some really cold temperatures coming in the upper 20s for central and south Louisiana. So producers need to be prepared for that. We're well into our haystacks from a practical standpoint. Myself as a cow-calf producer, I'm really starting to get concerned. We want a liquid supplement moving into some grazing, some fall winter pastures, and we started doing that, the week of Christmas, and so we've been there 10 days or so, and it's really made a difference. A lot of calves hitting the ground right now in central Louisiana and south Louisiana, because we find that the earlier that calves are born, you get that weight advantage at marketing time. So a lot of cow-calf producers are calving in December and January. Bulls will be going out soon. As Brittany stated, it's very important, as the bull is the calf crop in all actuality. If you don't have a serviceable bull that's of servicing your cattle, you're losing conception rate. So you need to be on board with a vet. Make sure that bulls are being tested, which brings to mind antibiotics are not easily to come by at this point in the stage of regulations. Have that vet-client relationship established as we move into the winter period. And, as I stated, we have a lot of calving dates are upon us here in the central part of the state and south. Antibiotics will be a necessity in your toolbox. So have that availability, establish that client relationship with the veterinarians in your area. We have a lot of good vets in South Louisiana and throughout the state, but it becomes a necessity at times. I'm not condoning that we need antibiotics, but you do at times. Again, I'll reiterate what Brittany said about being able to supplement calves in cold weather periods. Have some type of shelter, as our Brahman-influenced cattle are predominant in the southern part of the state. They do not take cold and ice on their back very well. If you're in a calving interval, have that available to at least shelter them for 24 to 48 hours to establish that calf on his feet and going. So until that happens, we can see some percentage of calf crop loss in a bad weather event. God forbid we had a terrible one in December last year, and it just reckoned our winter pastures as far as losing all forage and created havoc as far as what body condition scores we had going into the spring of 23. So with that being said, there's again, reiterating what some of the others have said, people are still looking for hay. I talked to one custom hay baler this morning that he's still getting calls, and I mean, he's long been sold out probably 4 months ago. But there are still some sources of hay out there. They're very minimal. If you see that you're at least halfway or getting 2/3 the way in your haystack, plan with your local supply and dealers about get some cubes on hand, a couple of pallets of cubes on hand. 1 to 2 pounds per head per day of a range cube will be sufficient to maintain that body score condition and nutrition and create some energy in these bad weather periods. So you need to be prepared for that. There's several different brands of liquid supplementations out there that are more than sufficient to meet those needs, but you got to have some roughage with those. So just know all these things are at hand. We're at the most ultimate expensive time of the year if you're a cow-calf producer, as far as supplementing and feeding and maintaining your cattle moving to spring. So if we can get through the next 50 to 60 days, there'll be a lot of hay supplies gone at that point. But it's there are things we can do to manage it and practice for a worse year than we may have had. So God forbid we have that in any time in the near future. As I was talking to one cattleman again this morning, and he said, it's just unimaginable what we went through making one 1.5 cuttings of hay this year in South Louisiana, where we're 70 miles where I sit away from the coast, and you get those daily rain showers that you can normally produce as much grass and forage as you need to supplement and put up during the wintertime. And it wasn't that way this year at all. It's been a real struggle, and we're still not out the woods yet. We're still dry. Drought monitor still shows that. As we move forward, I think we'll see some change in the drought monitor with these rains that we're anticipating getting. And the long range forecast is predicting that we're going to continue to have rains at least weekly for the next couple of weeks. But the scary thing is that I saw some models that are showing about the third week in January to be in the single digits. I don't know if that's a scare tactic or some kind of ballast that's out there, but even in the 20s, mid-20s for central Louisiana, it's going to be awfully cold. So be prepared for that. We are moving into that cold period of late January through early February. Have some preparation in place. I mean, get your cattle ready to move where you can get them behind a windbreak or some type of shelter. That's all I can say at this point. Again, bulls will be going out, just kind of following up for fertility tests or a major player in the game right now. It's important that we get every cow bred that we can, because there was a big conception rate decrease because of the conditions we dealt with heat and drought and lack of nutrition moving through the summer and fall of 23. So it's about all I have, and it's just we're at that point of the year where it's a challenging time, and markets still look pretty good. I mean, people that have cattle to go to market are still, and I'm sure Ashley will cover some of that, or if Lee's going to jump on, but markets are still favorable. If you have those non-productive cows, part with them. Don't fall in love with them. Part with them. Bulls that don't test, part with them. They're not worth having to have to feed around the yard and make mud as we go forward. So I'll close with that.
Thank you. And to add on to talking about lower conception rates, remember too that with the heat stress, especially when it fell last year for such a long duration, it's possible we're going to see smaller calves and calves that aren't quite as vigorous as when they hit the ground this year. So just again, we've talked calving season at length here, but just be mindful of that. Be mindful, make sure they're not getting bogged down in the hay rings and in the mud as you go through your calving season. So as y'all can see, Lee's not on today. He wasn't able to jump on with us and did not do a market update due to the holidays last week. I think 2 of our sale barns ran and only 1 provided some data. So we opted to not do a full market report. But echoing what Vince said, the markets do look strong after the holidays still. The replacement cows have been steadily increasing in value. That trend might hold, and just overall directions for the markets, of course, will remain to be seen, but positive so far. And then echoing what Tripp had said earlier, up for the Northwest region for Lee, he said ryegrass and other winter forages have been suffering from the cold conditions, and people are just kind of holding their breath to see what's going to happen with that moving forward. So as we start looking into the next month or two on some of these events, I know we've touched on them some before the end of the year, but just to add back in. So Wednesday, January 10th, so that'll be tomorrow when this goes out, we do have our Louisiana Agricultural Outlook Forum that is being hosted by Dr. Deliberto from one of our ag economists. It's a full program here in Alexandria at the State Evacuation Shelter. It's going to start with registration at 8:30, but there will be production cost discussion for 2024, outlooks for corn, soybean, rice, cotton, cattle, sugar, and forestry. And then we have a few panel discussions, there's a Farm Bill and Ag Policy update, and then there are 2 separate panel discussions. The first one will be on trends in agriculture lending rates, and then the other one will be managing inputs in a challenging production year. And so that's going to be covering all commodities on those 2 particular panels. They were asking for RSVPs for that because there was going to be a lunch associated with it. But if you did not RSVP and you're interested, please just email Dr. Deliberto. I've got that in the video and podcast descriptions and see if there's still some spots available for you to attend that. 2 breeding soundness exam day. 3 breeding soundness exam days coming up. Randi Toups had to reschedule hers. She said she's going to aim for January 24th in Lafourche Parish. So I'll put her contact there. That date's tentative, but you can reach out to her if you're interested. I think weather last week caused her to postpone that. Brittany mentioned, I'm sorry, I've got a lot of flyers up here, making sure I get the right ones. Brittany mentioned the one in Opelousas on February 22nd. Did I get that right, Brittany? And so I've got contacts for Lanie, Brittany, and then Mr. Mike Dominique in the video and podcast description, as well as the link to sign up for that particular BSE day. Then there will also be one on March 2nd in Lake Charles. And so you can talk to Bradley Pousson or Jimmy Meaux about that. Again, their contacts in the descriptions. So Lafourche Parish, somewhere I think around the 24th is what Randi Lyn was looking at having. February 22nd in Opelousas, and then March 2nd in Lake Charles. All of those are coming up. And so I've got their contact information posted for y'all. Sorry, as I'm making through my rounds on all these flyers. The other thing to mention, Saturday, March 16th will be the Spring Acadiana Cattle Producers Field Day. That will be at the Iberia Research Station in Jeanerette. We're going to start at 8 a.m. with registration, and we are going through, I think, until 2:30 that afternoon. So a full program, of course, lunch is included with that. So go ahead and mark your calendars for that Saturday, March 16th. Looking way forward, Lee and I have mentioned the AI class at the Hill Farm Research Station in Homer. That is April 10th through the 12th. Again, we have an extensive wait list for that, but if you're interested in it, let us know so we can go ahead and add you to that. And then the Northwest Region's Beef and Forage Field Day will be on Thursday, April 25th. So I know months in advance, you'll hear me keep mentioning them, but go ahead and get all of those events on your calendar. It's starting to fill up. It looks like it's going to be a great 2024. We're excited to have so many new faces from last year, new programs, and some different changes throughout the state. So I think it was Tripp that mentioned we've got all of our livestock shows coming up. I'm going to go ahead and wish all of our exhibitors good luck. As he said, we had the one in Union Parish last Saturday. We're looking at Ag Expo this coming weekend in West Monroe. And I know there's parish shows scattered throughout over the next couple of months, moving into our district shows in Gonzales. So as we talked about those teens and 20s degree weather, bundle up. We know how those show barns get. It's going to be nice and chilly. But good luck to all those exhibitors, and I'm sure we'll be seeing y'all around in some of those show barns. And we will be back with y'all in a couple of weeks for our next news update.